Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going over the spoilers for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Today this is the first day of official spoilers, so we've got a lot of cards to cover. I'm not going to cover every single card today, but the ones that I thought might be the most broken and might have the most combo and synergy potential with other cards in standard or in older formats. So let's jump right in and see what we got today. So we got these desert lands that come into play. They're all two different colors, dual lands, and whenever they come into play, they come into play tapped, and they deal 1 damage to target opponent. So these lands will commit crimes. That's kind of what they really intended to do. This new card, Free Strider Lookout, says whenever you commit a crime, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And this ability triggers only once each turn. Fortunately, that would be completely broken if it didn't, because you could just go through your whole deck. But these lands can turn on any cards that say commit a crime, because committing a crime means you're targeting your opponent, anything they control, or cards in their graveyard. So with Free Strider Lookout and this land, playing a land will trigger it and then get you another land, which could be another one of these and does another damage to your opponent. So that's a pretty sweet synergy. These lands I also thought could turn on Spectacle in older formats. Maybe in a burn deck, you'd want to play these just because they do damage to your opponent and turn on Light Up the Stage or other cards with Spectacle. And in Standard, they also work with Ob Nixilis, the Captive Kingpin, which says that whenever one or more opponents lose exactly 1 life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then exile the top card of your library. Until the next end step, you may play that card. So being able to trigger that off of a land is pretty powerful as well. So some synergy there. I think these lands are going to see some play in Standard and maybe other formats, just because they do synergize with turning on crimes, but also just having dual lands to deal damage to the opponent, I think is pretty powerful. There could be other ways of using them in terms of just bringing lands into play and having lands as your win condition. But we'll see kind of what other cards we get that synergize with it as well. Next up, we've got Sator the Infiltrator, which is 2 mana for a 2/3, and it's a human ninja rogue with menace. And it says when it comes whenever it comes into play, or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. So if you can get this to cost 0 mana somehow, it can trigger that. But this card is quite good with other creatures that cost 0, because they will just draw you a card. So this is sort of a glimpse of nature effect for those cards. You know, there's sort of the Cheerios deck in older formats that just shoots a bunch of 0 mana creatures, and this card could go right in. Maybe even in modern, with you got Memnite and Ornithopter, that you could just sort of create a deck with a lot of 0 mana cards. It also works well with ninjutsu and plot, which is a new mechanic, which lets you cast things for 0 mana and lets you draw a card. So this card has a lot of value potential, just drawing extra cards, but I think a lot of combo potential too with 0 mana creatures, and then maybe just in a storm deck. Turn 2, play this, play all your 0 mana cards, draw a card, play a storm effect, and maybe just win on turn 2 with this guy. So we'll see. I think this guy's got a lot of potential for combo, and we'll see what happens with that. There are also, going back to the lands, there are a few other dual lands that come into play untapped, the enemy colored fast lands, which is awesome. There's no like particular combo, they're reprints, but I think those are definitely going to see some play as well in Standard for sure. Next, we got the Slick Shot Show Off, which is 2 mana for 1/2 Flying Haste Bird Wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and you can plot it for 2 mana. Plot means you can exile it from your hand, cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost, and you can only plot as a sorcery. So this card, I think, is probably one of the best cards that has been spoiled so far. I think this is going to see play in multiple formats. Standard for sure. You have mono red burn decks. You've got this sort of like red green giant growth, just like pump up all your guys' prowess type of decks. In older formats, you've got Wizard Lightning, and it's a wizard, which turns on Wizard's Lightning, so that matters for different synergies, for wizard synergies there. I think there's some other wizard synergy cards in older formats that this would also turn on. And also Callous Sellsword, which I just thought about the burn together effect, a fling effect. Because of the way it's worded, when you play burn together, it'll trigger this, it'll get the bonus, and then it'll fling. So theoretically, you could play this on turn 2, or even plot it on turn 2. And plot is really nice because it kind of gets around sorcery speed removal. If you think your opponent has sorcery speed removal, you could just plot it. Turn 3, say you plot it, play it for free, giant growth. That's adding 5 power each, right? So then you're swinging for 11 damage in the air, and then burn together, fling for 13. So that's a total of 24 damage on turn 3 with just 4 cards. This, 2 giant growths, and a burn together. So that's pretty insane in standard. There's other prowess cards in standard you could play alongside of that. I really think this card is going to be very powerful and lead to a lot of turn 3 kills. So get ready to enjoy that. We also have Insatiable Avaris, which is a 1-mana sorcery, and it has Spree, a new mechanic, which lets you choose 1 or more additional costs to the card. So you can pay an additional 2 to search your library for a card, shuffle it, and put it on top, or an additional 2 black to have target player draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. So this card on its own is all right. You could play in a 5 mana total to search your library and then essentially draw it and lose 3 life and draw 2 additional cards, which ain't bad. But it has some combo potential too. Well, first there's Micromancer, which is kind of a card that nobody really used that much, but it lets you search your library for this because its mana cost is 1. And there's a bunch of other spree cards that all cost 1, so Micromancer is a nice way to search your library for those if you're really relying on them. This works well with Sheoldred because anything that draws cards, it's going to either, if you're targeting yourself here, you're going to be gaining, or netting, you should say, a life per card because you lose 3, but then you'll draw 3. You can also target your opponent here and have them lose 3 and draw 3, which then they will lose 6. So that's a total of 9 damage to the face. That's a pretty strong way to finish the game if you have a Sheoldred out. So I could see those cards going in the same deck. And then the first effect, just being able to search your library and put anything on top, is really nice with, say, Vesuvian Drifter, which one of my pet cards, one of my favorite cards that I've tried to build around. It's a lot of kind of combos, but you play Vesuvian Drifter out on turn 3, for example. If you have Mana Dork, you could do it turn 2. And then you play this and search your library for anything, put it on top, and then it becomes a copy of that. So that, I think, has a lot of potential to be quite good 1-2 punch. And we'll see kind of how that unfolds. I'll probably build a deck around that, knowing me. Okay. We also have Fortune Loyal Steed, a legendary creature beast mount. So mount is this new ability, a new card type, creature card type, I think. I think it's all in creatures, yeah. And it has saddle 1, so that means you can tap a creature with power 1 or more to saddle it, and then it gives it an additional kind of bonus or something it does when it attacks, typically. When this comes into play, you scry 2, which is nice. And when it attacks while saddled at the end of combat, exile it and up to 1 creature that saddled it this turn, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So it blinks whenever saddled it. So for this, I thought it would be fun to do some sort of anything. Well, first, anything that has a come into play effect is quite powerful with this because it blinks. It'll blink that, and then it'll get another one of those effects. But also with cloaking, so you could play this on turn 3 and then hide in plain sight on turn 4. Say you cloak an Atraxa, something big that you want to flip, then you could use that the 2/2 that you've gotten that's cloaked to saddle the Fortune Loyal Steed, attack with a Steed. I think even if it would die, you would still get this trigger to flicker the thing that you are now that had saddled it, and then it would come back into play flipped over, essentially, on its front side. So that's a nice little combo. Might try that out. And then Combat Thresher, anything with Prototype is also kind of sweet, because you could play this on 3 and then Thresher on 4, draw a card, use it to saddle, attack, and then flicker the Combat Thresher, comes back into play, draw another card. Now you have a 3/3 double strike. So definitely some synergies going on there. I don't know if this is a particularly competitive card, but seems pretty fun, and might see if I can build a deck around it. We got Tiny Bones Joins Up, which is a 1 black legendary enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, any number of target players each discard a card. And whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target players each mill a card and lose 1 life. So this does a lot of things. It can commit a crime because it targets your opponent, and would commit a crime when it targets when it would target them for the second ability too. So I thought Lazav, there's a new Lazav here, and Tiny Bones, which I went over in my first video, but both of them synergize quite well, as well as the old Lazav. The new Lazav is 3 mana, and it says whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you can exile a card from a graveyard if a creature card is exiled. This way you have it become a copy of it. It can trigger only once. So if you played Tiny Bones on turn 1, by the way, you can target yourself if you have a big creature in your hand that you want to put in the yard here. So that would be kind of cool to just put it, say, in a track's end of the yard here, and then make your opponent discard a card. And then on turn 3, you play the new Lazav, and that would you could also, it would trigger the second ability, make them mill a card. You could do it on yourself if you wanted to mill a card yourself. And then that would trigger Lazav's ability, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then if there was something in the graveyard you wanted to copy, especially if it was like a big creature with haste or something like that, that would be kind of cool. And then you just be able to attack right away with a big hasty guy, maybe want a hasty dragon or something like that, to get in right away. But also the old Lazav triggers it because it's a legendary creature, and also you want things in the graveyard. So kind of the same thing, and same with Tiny Bones. Obviously, it's going to have some synergy with Tiny Bones. It's in the name. So Tiny Bones is a legendary creature that also wants cards in the graveyard of your opponent. So I think there's a lot of synergy combo potential with this card. Only 1 mana, and it does a lot. So I think I might be building a deck around this one as well. All right. We got the new Jace Reawaken, which is 2 mana, and you can only cast this. You can't cast it on the first, second, or third turns of the game, so probably turn 4 at the earliest. But it has an ability +1 to loot. But the second ability is you can exile a non-land card with a mana value 3 or less from your hand, and if you do, it becomes plotted. Now, plotted means you can cast the card without paying its mana cost in a following turn. So you could play this on turn 4 and then plot, say, a Valky. This is kind of the combo that I saw some people talking about. And then you can cast the backside of Valky, the Tibalt, on the next turn. Because I guess that's just the way the rules work. You can just cast it without paying its mana cost. You can choose either side of it, which is a kind of nice combo. -6 is until end of turn, whenever you cast a spell, copy it. Choose new targets for the copy. So this card is nice. It's like a looter that you can use every turn, but also has this ability to kind of play things for free as well. So I could see it going into decks that want looting effects, but also kind of this nice little combo here with Valky. We got Gissa, the Hellraiser, 5 mana for Human Warlock, Ward 2, pay 2 life. Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. So that's nice. It could go into, I was thinking maybe there'll be a skeleton deck in Standard. We're getting some support from that. Zombies haven't gotten a lot of support, so that's one potential home for this. But what I'm really thinking about is using this last ability, which says whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature tokens. The ability triggers only once each turn. unfortunately, but that does mean you can use this ability on your opponent's turn, I believe. So I was thinking of like, okay, what are some effects that would sort of commit a crime, and you could do that every turn or even on your opponent's turn. Um, so we got like Trailblazing Historian, which could target your opponent's creatures every turn, just to tap without any mana. So the turn that you play the Gissa, you could activate something right away to commit a crime. Port and Tracker untaps a target land, so you can kind of use it to ramp into Gissa, but then also once you play the Gissa, you could use it to untap your opponent's lands, and that would commit a crime. And Armored Scrap Gorge are the same. There's this new guy, Vile Smasher, which it says whenever it enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. An outlaw enters the battlefield. So a warlock is an outlaw. So this, if you had this on turn 2, this on turn 5, or turn 4 if you have mana acceleration, that would trigger right away, deal 1 damage to them, then you get the zombies. And then every other turn, if you played an outlaw. And actually, I believe, I just noticed this, the zombies are rogues. So that would also trigger this Vial again. So that's kind of nice to do 2 more damage to your opponent every time you get those zombies. So I think, I guess that kind of like doesn't look particularly strong when you first read it, but I think that's quite powerful ability, because also the zombies it makes are getting pumped by its effect. So those are 3/3 zombies essentially when you have it out. But if you can get value from this, the turn that it comes into play before your opponent gets a chance to remove it, I think that's kind of the key to this card, making it work. Okay, we got the Gitrog Ravenous Ride, a 5-mana frog horror mount with trample and haste, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice a creature that saddled it. Saddle is 1. If you do, draw X cards and put X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. X is a sacrificed creature's power. So I thought this could go maybe well in like a fight rigging kind of style deck. You got the ancient one that could saddle it up, and then you could sacrifice the ancient one and draw 8 cards, and then put whatever lands you have into the battlefield right away. That would be pretty exciting. So let me know if you have any other thoughts about this card, but I thought fight rigging might be the best way to kind of use it. It's a fun one to do. I don't know how competitive that would be, but like being able to just draw 8 cards would be pretty good. Okay, so Vaultborn Tyrant is a dinosaur. 7 mana for a 6/6 trample, and whenever it or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Pretty nice. Maybe some in a dinosaur deck. This could be a top end. I don't know. But and the other effect is when it dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except as an artifact in addition to its other types. I thought it would go well in a Pull Reanimator deck. I built a deck with other dinosaurs with Pull in it a few weeks ago, and this would be a nice addition because it triggers when it comes into play. You could attack, and if you put another big creature into play, that first ability would trigger again. So you could gain 3 life, gain 6 life, draw 2 cards, and then you sacrifice the creature at the end of the turn with pull. So then you would get a copy of it again at the end of turn. So then you could keep attacking with it the next turn. So a lot of synergy there. Yeah, let me know if you have any other thoughts with the Vaultborn Tyrant. That was the main one I thought about that card. And we have Double Down, which is, I think this is more of a casual card, but I was trying to think of what's the best sort of outlaw spell that we could copy with it. So it's a 4-mana enchantment that says whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy it. And again, assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, warlocks, or outlaws. And Vein Ripper is kind of, I think, is the best probably target for this, or the best combo with this. If you had this out and you played Vein Ripper, you get a second Vein Ripper right away. So for them to try to kill any of your creatures, they'd lose 4 life and you gain 4 life. That would be pretty hard to beat that board state. I think it's probably a little too slow to be very competitive, but would be pretty fun to pull off. Okay, we've got Key to the Vault, which is a legendary artifact equipment for 2 mana. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order, and you may cast an exile card without paying its mana cost. So this is a little clunky, but it's very powerful effect. Anything that I've ever says, like whenever you can cast a spell without paying its mana cost. I was thinking about Emrakul because that's like one of the best things you can do. But the problem with this is you have to be able to set up the top of your library, um, and so maybe in brainstorm type of formats, you could play this on, say, let's look a small flyer, a 1/1 flyer. It doesn't even matter. You could equip it on turn 3, and then turn 4. Brainstorm, put Emrakul on top, hit it, cast Emrakul, something like that. Don't know how competitive that would be, but that was sort of the thought that went through my head when I first saw this card, of course. So let me know if there's any other ideas you have with this. It is an equipment. There's some equipment synergies out there, of course, but I think it's probably more of a fun one. But gotta live in magical Christmas land sometimes too. So. We got some uncommons here. So these were all rares. There's some nice uncommons that they revealed that I thought had some combo potential. Dazzling Escape, which is, again, an instant with Spree, and it says exile target non-token creature. At the beginning of the next end step, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And 2 mana to choose target creature destroyed if it has the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. So it can kind of, for 3 mana, you could destroy basically the creature with the greatest power, and then for 4 mana, you can do that, and you can blink something. So I thought Eternal Witness would be a combo with this. If you had an Eternal Witness out, say you played Eternal Witness on turn 3, then turn 4, you played Dazzling Escape with both the modes. You could kill their biggest creature, and then blink your Eternal Witness and get back the Dazzling Escape. And every turn after that, provided the Eternal Witness stays on the battlefield, you can basically pay 4 mana and kill their biggest creature every turn for the rest of the game, which would be pretty annoying for the opponent. I'm not sure how competitive this would be, but it's pretty cool. Maybe it's more of a commander thing. But yeah, some nice synergy there. Maybe there's some other cards besides Eternal Witness too. Let me know in the comments. That was the only card I could think of that when it comes into play, you can return the Dazzling Escape to your hand. But any creature that when it ETBs, you could return an instant from your graveyard to your hand would work pretty well with Dazzling Escape. Okay, and we've got Hearth Rebirth, which is a 5 mana sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then return another target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is kind of really powerful, I think, with Galta, the new Galta, that says when it comes into play, you put any number of creature cards from your graveyard to your battlefield, because say your graveyard had Galta in it and basically any other creature, but I thought of the Pauline's Hatcher, which gives your dinosaurs haste and creates some other dinosaur tokens. If you are reanimating Galta, you're also getting whatever the other, say, creature that you are returning to your hand into play for free, because Galta, when it comes into play, will put that card onto the battlefield itself. So if you had, say, these two, you would get the Galta in play, then you would put the Hatcher into play as well, and then it would give the Galta haste, and get the token, which also has haste, and you could just swing for 15. That would be a pretty big turn, and it would also put any other creatures you had in your hand into play right away. So some combo potential there too, I think. That deserves a mention. And let's see, the last card here is Armored Armadillo. You might not think much of this card, but I thought it would go well in sort of a Toughness Matters style deck. It's a 1 mana 0/4 with Ward 1, and it has an ability for 4 mana. It gets +X/+O until the turn, where X is its toughness. But not really using it for that ability, although it's kind of nice that it has that ability in case you need to attack with it. and pump mana into it, but it kind of enables more of the Pride of the Hold Clade kind of decks. A few weeks ago, I built one in Explorer, and this would kind of be a strict upgrade. There's like an Ox, that's 1 mana, that's just a 0/4. But this having Ward and this other ability is actually a strict upgrade from that card. So, and also we got the Bedrock Tortoise in Standard, so maybe there could be some sort of Standard Toughness Matters deck. Probably not Tier 1 deck, but fun for sure. All right, so that's it for day 1 of the spoilers. I didn't want to make this video too long, but let me know what your thoughts are on these cards, any combos I missed, synergies I missed, cards that you're excited about. What decks are you going to build first, and what you think about the set. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow with another spoiler video. All right, take care.